Hi YouTube. Today we're going to be looking at a couple of full-size 45 ACP pistols. We're going to compare some of the similarities and differences in them, and we're going to see which one we think is better. Now, both of these are very iconic designs, and both of them have a large following, and both of them seem to also have a large hater crowd. Well, we're going to try and take as neutral of a stance as we can, and we're going to compare them. So, first of all, we're going to remove the magazines from them, show you there's nothing in them. And then we'll start comparing them. First one we're going to look at, this is a Glock 21. This is a full-size 45 ACP. This is a polymer frame striker fired pistol that came out in 1990. I think that's the year that Glock released the full-size 45 ACP. Originally, Glock released their pistol in 1982. It was in full-size 9mm, and they started offering this one in 1990. It's the largest frame Glock that they have to offer. It's a pretty big gun. It's a pretty wide frame. It's a double stack 45. The magazine capacity on it is 13 rounds in the magazine. So if you have one in the chamber, it'd be a 13+1 capacity. This gun is awesome. It handles the 45 ACP recoil very well because of the size of it. What a lot of people's complaints about this gun is that the grip is very large. So if you have extra small hands, a lot of people have problems reaching around this gun. I don't personally have that problem. I have pretty decent sized hands, but I could see how somebody with really small hands could have a little bit of an issue with it. But this is the Glock 21. This one happens to be a Gen 4, and we're not going to get into the whole generation discussion in this video. We're just going to compare a full-size Glock to a full-size 1911. Next one we're going to look at, this is a Colt 1911. This one happens to be a Colt Gold Cup National Match. This is just what I thought of as a normal 1911. It's made by the original 1911 designer, Colt. Colt introduced a 1911 in, let's wait for it, 1911. And it was designed for the military. The military wanted a 45 caliber semi-automatic pistol, and John Moses Browning came up with this design in 1911. Colt purchased the rights to it, and they started manufacturing it, and they've manufactured it all the way up till the present day. Now their patent has run out on the 1911, so now pretty much everybody produces a 1911 because it is such an iconic pistol, and it's still a relevant pistol in today's market, and people still enjoy shooting them. So the normal magazine capacity on these are 8 rounds in the magazine and 1 in the chamber. As you can see, it's a single stack 45. Now let's talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages of them. With the Glock, the first advantage is going to be the capacity. I mean, 13 rounds in the magazine at a 45 ACP is pretty awesome, especially at the range. So it's less reloading time and more shooting time, and I would call this a range gun. I would not call this a concealed carry gun. I know there's going to be people that say they carry this around, they carry it inside their waist, or they open carry it. Normally, in normal circumstances, this is not an ideal carry gun just because of the size of it. So I would say this would be a range gun or a home defense gun. And with 13 rounds of 45 ACP, I mean, how can you go wrong? That would be a big advantage on the Glock side. The second one is reliability. Glock pistols are known to be one of the most, if not the most, reliable pistols in the world. I mean, they've been doing this for 40 years, and the design is basically going unchanged for 40 years. I know they've made a couple different revisions here and there with their different generations and all that, but basically a Glock's a Glock, and they just tend to work. And why change something that doesn't work? So, and the reliability and the capacity, I would give it to the Glock. The 1911 is a reliable pistol if it's properly maintained. 1911s have to be cleaned and lubricated to run properly. These guns cannot run just dry. They just don't tend to work well running dry. So they're a little bit more finicky when it comes to maintenance and stuff like that. It's just a little bit, you just have to take a little bit more care of them. But what you have to understand is the soldiers were using these in World War I, and they didn't seem to have an issue with it. This gun fired 6,000 consecutive rounds without one single malfunction. I don't know of anybody else who owns a gun that's fired 6,000 rounds through it and didn't have some kind of issue or hiccup here and there. So I would say this is a pretty reliable gun also. But capacity wise, the 8 rounds in the magazine, that's quite a bit less than the Glock has. I would give the reliability, I would say the Glock's a little bit more reliable simply because they're a lot more user friendly. These things can be equally as reliable if people properly maintain them, but that's what's wrong with the world today. People have gotten lazy, they don't like to take care of stuff, and the majority of people that have problems with 1911s really don't know what they're doing. They don't properly maintain them, they don't properly lubricate them, and they are a little bit harder to break down. So we'll give a slight edge to Glock for the reliability thing. Now, function wise, they both are single action only function. So when you cock, let's pull the magazine out of it. When you cock this gun, it goes off one time, and there is no double strike capability here. It's not going to go off again until the slide cycles reset and fire. 1911, it's the same thing. Cock the hammer, pull the trigger. It's not going to go off again until it reset, the slide cycles reset, and then fire. So they both operate the same way. Now, where I believe the 1911 is going to have the major advantage is going to be in the trigger. A Glock is a Glock. They're reliable, they work, all that kind of stuff, but they are spongy. See the trigger, how spongy it is? It's like springing my finger back, and there's that much take up on it, and then it breaks. 1911 is not the same way. 1911 is going to be the best trigger that you've ever felt in a handgun. So there's that much take up, and bam, it breaks. And it is crisp. Now, I've said this before on other videos, but the worst 1911 trigger is always going to be better than the best Glock trigger. That's just a fact. I mean, this is a superb design when it comes to trigger pull. Every pistol is compared to this trigger design, this trigger feel, and none of them's managed to match it up till now. This was a superb design when it came out, and this is what every trigger is measured to, is the 1911 trigger. It's just superb in any way. There's nothing wrong with this trigger. It takes a little getting used to if you've shot other kind of hammer fired guns or revolvers or stuff like that. It is spongy, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's just never gonna feel like a 1911 trigger. So when it comes to trigger feel, it definitely is, you're going to have an advantage with the 1911. Now, looks wise, when people like us that are into firearms, I mean, functionality isn't the only thing in life, and when you go by looks, a Glock looks like a Glock. They all look the same. You can paint it any color you want. You can Gucci it out all you want with the Gucci Glockers that like to add all the stuff onto them, but it still looks like a Glock. It's blocky. It's never going to win a beauty contest, but that's not what it was made for. It was made to function. It was made to always work. The 1911 is a lot more aesthetically pleasing. This particular one is from the 70s. It's got a beautiful blue finish on it. It's got beautiful walnut grips on it and gold medallions on it. It's a really good looking gun. So, I mean, with that being said, I would say that on looks wise, the 1911, the Colt 1911 is going to win out by far. So if you're a looks person and you want your gun to look good, I don't know of a person on the earth that could say that this Glock looks better than this 1911, because it just simply isn't so. Now, accessories. This thing is probably the most accessorized weapon in the world. I don't know, it's a real close race between this and the AR-15. There's nothing you can't buy for this gun. I mean, I'm surprised they haven't made a missile launcher for him yet. There's just nothing. This is a Gucci Glocker's dream. This is a blank slate. This is a bone stock Generation 4 Glock 21. A Gucci Glocker would just go crazy if he had a pocket full of money on something like this. But they have a large aftermarket support. There's nothing you can't buy for them. You can buy triggers. You can buy complete slides for them. You can buy every accessory in the world to put on this rails. I mean, sights, it's just endless, the stuff you can buy for these things. I would be here the rest of the day if I explained to you everything you could buy for these things. But there's definitely the aftermarket support is not lacking when it comes to the Glock. The 1911 is pretty close. You can buy a whole lot of stuff for a 1911. They have triggers, they have sights for them, they have just about anything you can think of. Not quite as much so as for the Glock, but the problem that you run into with these is you just can't take a extended thumb safety, or if you wanted to put a commander hammer or something like that, you just can't take it at your kitchen table and snap that stuff in. These things require a little bit of skill, a little bit of hand fitting and all that. This is an older design, and it's going to be a little bit more work to accessorize one of these up, but it's out there. I think Wilson Combat is probably the biggest company out there selling 1911 parts. You can buy different barrels for them, different barrel bushings. You can buy barrel bushings already fit to it and everything to make these things pretty awesome. But like I said, it's just going to be a little bit more work and time to do it, but the end product is going to be pretty awesome when you're done. As far as breaking them down, I'm not going to break these things down here on camera, but breaking them down once again goes to ease, user friendly. Pretty much a baby could break down a Glock. It's fairly simple to do. 1911 is not hard to do, but you have to take this barrel bushing loose and you have to line this thing up just right with the slide and all that. It does break down, so I'd say the Glock takes it on breaking down and cleaning, and the 1911 is not far behind it, but for a beginner I could see how it'd be a little bit more of a challenge. Now with accuracy, and accuracy is a big broad subject. Now if you usually accuracy is about as good as the person using it. So I could take Tiger Woods golf clubs and I could probably not shoot in the 60s, but he's got the best equipment ever, and it's probably not the equipment that's doing it. I'm sure the equipment helps, but it's not the equipment doing it. So when you get into accuracy, it's usually going to be about as good as the person operating the weapon is. But if you were putting these in a ransom rest, the Glock would not do too bad, but the 1911 is going to take it. The 1911 is going to be a more accurate pistol. It's just put together more tight, and it's got tighter tolerances and all that. It's just a better design for how it's assembled and how it goes together, and the lockup of the barrel and all that stuff. The 1911 tends to be the more accurate gun out of the two. So if you're an accuracy guy, the 1911 is probably going to be the way to go. But overall, both of the guns are iconic. Both of them are really good. I would say both of these guns are more of range guns, and they're just it should have to be whatever your situation is. When you get into cost, these Glocks, I think of Glocks are as $500 weapons. That's all they're ever going to be. They usually cost $500. The 1911s are going to be a little bit more costly to them, because there's more goes into making them. They're all metal. They require a little bit of hand fitting to put together. So the Glock's going to be the cheaper route. If you're on a budget and you want a full-size 45 for the range, and you don't have a lot of spare money, the Glock's probably going to be the way to go. If money's not an issue and you want a really good looking gun that's really accurate, probably going to be the 1911. Usually at the range, you have spare magazines. You can buy these. The magazine cost is about the same on them, because you're going to want to run like a Wilson Combat magazine in this one, and you want to run factory Glock magazines in that. They're just proven facts. They usually cost about the same. Now the difference in the capacity is 5 rounds. So this one's going to hold 5 more rounds. You know, that's all depends on how much your time's worth to you. Does it really take that much longer to load 5 rounds in it? I mean, I don't think so. I've been doing this a long time. I can do them. They make speed loaders for both. Makes it very easy. These are really hard to load just by hand. These are not. So they both have advantages and disadvantages. Weight wise, I would say the Glock's a little bit lighter because the whole frame's made out of polymer. This is all steel, so this is going to be a little bit heavier. But there's advantages and disadvantages of that. If you were using this as a carry gun, that would be an issue. The weight would be an issue. I don't see in a normal circumstance, now normal circumstance, before you start giving me a bunch bad comments here, normal circumstances, a full-size 1911 is not an ideal carry gun. But if you were to carry this would be a little bit heavier than the full-size Glock. I don't see this as being an ideal carry gun either. This is going to weigh a little less, so the Glock's going to get a little bit of an advantage on the weight thing. But I would say durability, they're both about the same. I have a 1911 that's over 100 years old, still runs perfect. I don't have a 100-year-old Glock, and I'm probably not going to be around in this world to know of a 100-year-old Glock. Time will tell whether they'll last 100 years. They are made out of polymer. Polymer usually doesn't deteriorate, so I would see one of these being around for 100 years, but who knows? All the Gucci Glockers could have cut them all up by then. But I always gotta give the Gucci Glocker glove props. But they're both excellent weapons, and there's going to be people that like one and people that like the other. But either way you go, you're going to have a good gun. You're going to have a reliable gun. You just got to remember a little bit more maintenance, a little bit more finesse with these. These are, a beginner could use these. I mean, you can go thousands of rounds on you cleaning this thing. I think it would run. This one's going to require a little bit of lubrication. You know, after a few hundred rounds, 300 or 400 rounds, you're probably going to want to put a little lubrication in. If you're lazy and you don't clean your stuff, this might be the way to go. If you take care of your stuff, it really doesn't matter which one you choose. But anyway, guys, I wanted to compare two iconic full-size 45 ACP, the Lord's Caliber, for you today, and see what y'all's thoughts are on it. You tell me which one you think is the better gun, and use common sense. Don't use your heart, because using common sense gets you further in life. Thank you very much for watching my video, and you folks have a great day.